Talking to everyone is talking to no one. Offering everything is offering nothing. We are continuing this series to kick off the year of creating a business plan that we can get very honed in on foundational basics, easily implement, and really successfully strategize so that we can thrive and not just survive. Let's get going on identifying our unique serving proposition.
Welcome to the Business Bites Podcast, the podcast for busy entrepreneurs. Whether you're an online entrepreneur or seeking after brick and mortar success, this podcast brings you quick bites of content so you can learn and grow anywhere you are. Now here's your host, Rachel Brainke.
Just an FYI before we get into the episode, enrollment is open on multiple of my brands. So here at Rachel Brainke, we have RealBiz Accelerator. It's a 52-week program where you get to work with me on a lot of the topics that we are working on here. Over at the Law Tog, my brand for photographers, we have something very similar, but it is photographer specific. So just an FYI, it is the beginning of a new year, no matter when you're listening to this, but right now, the beginning of 2021, we are kicking off. Enrollment is open. Please come and join us. We are digging in. There's pre-work, there's weekly work, there's videos, there's accountability, all of that. Come join us and let's make this the best year ever. Hello, friends. Welcome to another week of the Business Bites podcast. I am your host, Rachel Brainke, and this series that we are currently in is one of my favorites. The reason is this is something that I feel like so many entrepreneurs either completely overlook because they're overwhelmed, they don't know about it, they're just excited, or they do it once and they never come back to it. But let me tell you what. I have not gotten to where I am, and I'm not going to get to where I want to go without continually reinforcing and going through this methodical foundational process every year. FYI, if you're just joining us on this episode, we are already a few weeks into this, and we've also had the RealBiz Challenge at rachelbrainke.com, which is a free challenge. That's a good foundational free place to start. Watch the videos, download the guide, go through all of that, then come and listen to these last few episodes, and we're going to continue. We've got a couple more to go for this month, and it will give you the view of what I do every single year in order to dig into my business and create a business strategy that is going to be about thriving, not just surviving. I keep using this phrase along with the Real Biz, Real Life, because those are two of the cornerstones that I look to when I am making decisions in my business. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. You guys know, y'all know, and you've heard my podcast for years if you've been around or if you've seen me on social media. If you're new, you're going to learn I'm all about tough love, but you know, it can be overwhelming to get into entrepreneurship. We have to wear so many hats, especially if you're just getting in, you're in growing stages, you're having growing pains. Maybe it's just you or you're learning to manage a team. Wherever you're at in your journey, it can be completely overwhelming. And here's my thing, y'all. And I have like my hands over my eyes. You can't see me. It's just, I want you to feel the love radiating and like the frustration that I feel for all of you. There is so much misinformation, these silver bullets out there that are being promised in advertisements, other podcasts, webinars, you name it. And the deal is, baseline, we got to be ourselves, but we also have to work methodical within ourselves. And so that's kind of like where my whole framework comes from. But to get to today's point of the next step of the series, we want to identify not only the cornerstone, quick tips to creating the business strategy a couple weeks ago. Last week, we talked about marketing is made so incredibly easy, and not just marketing, but your business decisions to kick that overwhelm are made easier when you know specifically who you're talking to. And if you didn't listen to that episode and you think you've got it, trust me, you need to go back and redo it. But we also have to keep trucking down this formula of, all right, what's the next step? And before I get into this, before I dig into the heavy content so that y'all can get in, write your notes, get out, and get actionable, this formula that I'm providing over the last few weeks is what I use for everything in my business. If I have a business opportunity that comes to me, such as a reporter interview, or maybe a speaking at a conference, or maybe just working with a local business, or even an online business in the same industry, or if I'm trying to decide on creating a new product, a new offering, any of that, I use this formula. I start with identifying very specifically who my consumer avatar is. Mine's name is Ava. I know exactly what she likes. I've gone through the whole process like we went through in the last episode, and I take it a step further and I go, okay, how would Ava consume this? Okay, what does that mean? Well, what is the path that she would consume it? But also, what would she think about this? What would be her response? What do I want her to do? All right, so that's the first part of the formula. The second part is what we're talking about today. And this is the unique serving proposition. And I emphasize serving because I'm all about serving over selling. The reason I got into entrepreneurship was so that I could serve to help others, so they could have real business, real life, have a real business to sustain and support the real life, whatever that looks like for you. And in order to do that, you have to also look at it from a serving position, but uniquely serve from a position that makes you the go-to in whatever industry that you're in. Let me give you an example of how I've done this specifically. One of my brands, The Law Talk, is the legal resource for photographers. I have set myself up to be not just the go-to legal resource, because there's so much information in the legal field for photographers, but I've honed very specifically on contracts/legal business and also copyright. Because for photographers, they're selling not just business products and services, but they're selling an actual product that is completely integrated with intellectual property and copyright laws. How does this work? Why is this important? Well, now when I'm in groups, etc., I have these years of developing this brand. When people ask, hey, I got an issue with copyright, who do I talk to? They say The Law Dog or Rachel Branke. And I want you for a second to imagine it like a huge boulder. All right. Think Indiana Jones style, this huge boulder. And that is your marketing. That is your business. You're trying to get going. You're trying to serve. You've already done all right, I want to talk to Ava the Avatar or whatever you've named yours, but now you got to figure out what you're going to serve them and you want to get going. In the beginning, it can be very difficult. And if you're trying to serve everything and be everything to everyone, you're going to be pushing this huge, huge, huge boulder, and it's really hard to get it going. Right? So what do we want to do? We want to start smaller, get a smaller little rock that we can roll and push. And then almost like a snowball, it can add snow onto it and it can build bigger as you go. What I'm saying is you want to become the go-to for something. And how are you going to do that? Through the unique serving proposition. Let me give you another example. While I may be very heavy in the photography industry of The Law Talk, I have been at non-photography conferences, speaking, attending, visiting, any of that. And I've had people come up and say, hey, you're the go-to in photography. Hey, you're the copyright gal for photographers. Absolutely crazy. The reason I give you these examples is because it makes your marketing, makes your business, it makes your serving of those that you're trying to serve, like your Avas, it makes it easier. It makes it, your return on investment of your time, money, and energy is going to be so much more maximized when you're very narrowly targeted to what you're uniquely serving. So you want to think about, what can I do? What can I provide? How am I uniquely situated into this? And actually, again, if you haven't gone through the RealBiz Challenge, go over to rachelbranke.com. We've got it linked at the top. We walk through this because you may be sitting there, especially if you're newer in business, and going, oh my gosh, I have all of this that I am looking to offer. I could offer all of this. I want to do all this. I want to be a generalist. I want to cast my net wide. Guess what? You're going to be casting it so wide that you're not going to catch anybody. And that is not just with who you're talking to, but it's also what you're serving. You want to be the go-to. Now, giving a couple more examples, and you may not understand these names, but I'm going to throw them out here as some little homework for you. I want you to look at someone like James Wedmore. He is an online digital marketer. He is a business coach. He has some fantastic programs for business owners. And he started out by teaching very narrowly to entrepreneurs on how to leverage YouTube. Okay, so he talked to a very specific avatar and he had a very unique serving proposition. He was serving to them and selling to them how to capitalize on YouTube. He has then expanded that. So he started with the little snowball and was able to just build it and push it and grab more snow, and now has expanded it to all digital. CEOs. Another example would be like Jasmine Star. She started in the photography industry. And what did she do? She is now known for social media marketing because that was one of the things that she was really good at in the photography world. And so she went from a very specific niche of just photography and now has transitioned and opened it up and widened it up to other industries. These are the ways that I want you to reframe your mind. But however, it's going to depend on where you're at in your journey. We'll talk about that and how to identify when to make those changes, pivots, etc. But foundationally, let me walk you through how I do this every year. I sit down and I walk through all the steps that we've talked to before. I go back through the RealBiz challenge. I go back through identifying the consumer avatar. And FYI, in RealBiz Accelerator, I walk through and share with you my own analytics and views of how like, okay, I know that I want to attract this sort of avatar. That's not my existing one. Or, oh my gosh, here's my analytics are showing me X, but I actually want to be attracting Y. How do we change that? And that's something that you need to do. You need to situate and start where you're at right now. So if you have analytics and all that, pull up your Google Analytics, pull up your Facebook, pull up all that demographics, talk to your audience, see where they're at right now. And that is where you're going to determine, well, first of all, like last week, are we serving the people that we want to? Are we attracting the people that we want to? And then this week, what do we want to specifically serve to them? And we're going to talk about offerings later on down the line in the series, but they conjoin here too, because your unique serving proposition, let's take the Law Talk, for example. I'm fairly situated in a niche industry, photography, right? Portrait photographers specifically, do some commercial, but very heavy in portrait photography. So that big boulder of mine is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I came out the gate by talking very specifically on contracts because I was taking not only what I could uniquely provide, but also what I felt like those the avatars uniquely needed. And so I was able to marry those together. And as time has gone on, I've added additional offerings. I've added additional resources to help serve them and promote their business. But here's the deal. When I had first started out, and I'm raising my hands because again, I'm the case study in all this series. When I first started out, I was just Rachel Brinke. Did not have the Law Talk, did not have Fit Legally, did not have any of my brands. I was just Rachel Brinke. And it was this very general entrepreneurship. I want to help entrepreneurs, which is great. That's what I want. That's all I want more than anything is to serve and help other people to have the real business, real life. Like I feel like I have obtained and continuing to work towards, right? However, again, it was that big boulder versus small boulder, a small rock. It's harder to push the big one in the beginning. And it's a lot harder for people to recognize you specifically for something. So some of the homework here is to sit back and think about what are some of the go-to people. When you sit down to Google and to go, okay, I need recommendations on how to do X, who comes to mind? That person has developed a really good, unique serving position. And that is what you need to develop as well. Now, it's not as simple as sitting here and going, okay, I know what I want to offer. I know what they need, blah, blah, blah. It can get very drill down into it. We want to make sure that we're really providing what is needed. And you know what? You may have to pivot and change. Like during COVID, we had to pivot a little bit and do different offerings and throw our marketing plan to the wayside. That's okay. Still foundationally, we had a unique serving position in all of our brands. And that's what we continue to do. Even through this podcast, I'm uniquely serving because here's the deal. When this is being released and recorded and hopefully maybe even in the future, because guess what? This content is timeless. This is stuff that I do all the time. I think about it when I'm going to write a blog post, when I'm going to do a podcast. I think through this entire formula on all business decisions, but especially when I'm creating my business plan, because this is what is needed. And yes, it sounds so foundationally basic, but so many people skip over it. And really, if you just take the formula of consumer avatar, plus unique serving proposition, plus simplifying your offerings, plus packaging it into a theme, it will get served to the people you're trying to reach. You will help and empower them. It will help and empower you, and we will all accomplish the goals that we need to. So I invite you all to please come check out the RealBiz Challenge. It's free if you haven't done it. If you've already done it, or you're just like, I just want to jump right in, please come join us in RealBiz Accelerator on rachelbranke.com. 52 weeks. We're diving in. We do have coaching calls coming up. You do not want to miss it. We get in way deeper on this content. And guess what? I will walk you through how we're going to identify your unique serving proposition in there. So it may not necessarily be what you think, because guess what? Mine has changed over the years. And here are the formulas and ways that I identify if I need to change mine, if my audience has changed it for me, or if there's just a radical external circumstance that needs to force me to make a change, whether temporary or permanent. We will walk through all that. So come and join us, and I will see you guys inside.
Thanks for joining Rachel on this episode of the Business Bites. For show notes, a list of recommended tools, or referenced episodes, you can find them at businessbitespodcast.com. Until next time.